Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the introduction, and thanks everybody for being on today. Looking forward to spending some time and kind of going over our complete circuit mapping in our proven multi-platform approach. So just as a quick introduction, I'm Hayden Howard, Vice President of CompassData, and we've worked with Cyclomedia on some of these power line and circuit mapping programs for a while now. And over my career, I've worked on different projects and partnered with different people, and this one has been a really good partnership. It's a great project and solution. Providing the solution to the customer and seeing all the value they get out of it has been a real joy for me in going through the journey, and also working with the great folks at Cyclomedia. So I'm excited to share this stuff with everyone. And real quick, we'll just kind of go over what the Compass side does, and Jill will cover what the Cyclo side does from a high level, and then we'll dive in. So on the CompassData side, we're like the logistically challenged areas. We go to those locations, and we do that for all sorts of different projects, but that's really how we got introduced to this, right? So we're doing the backpack mapping and hiking up mountains and crossing rivers and going to locations that can't be captured by the vehicle. We're also the accuracy and geodetic experts, and Cyclomedia absolutely has those folks as well. But we do some accuracy checking and geodetics as part of this solution on the survey control and the verification of the calibrated data and all that, and that's a key role that we play. And as I said, we do the backpack, we do the survey, and then when we can't get to a location with a backpack, or it makes more sense to do it with a drone, we pull that platform in, and that's the CompassData side for this. So Jill, if you want to take over the Cyclomedia side.
Thanks, Hayden. This is Jill Scharbarth. I'm a solutions specialist with Cyclomedia Technologies. And Cyclomedia really focuses on street-level data capture. We capture high-resolution panoramic imagery, as well as mobile LiDAR data, and we offer AI-powered data analytics, as well as image viewing software and multiple integration opportunities.
All right, and as we've said, we've done thousands of miles together, and it's been a lot of fun. So quick agenda, we're just going to go over our companies, and then we're going to go over really the typical project, from plan to capture to process to publish to extract and to deliver and disseminate. Talk about analytics and get a demo from Jill, which is great. I've seen it already, so looking forward to seeing that again and showing it to you folks. And then just review everything we covered and go over questions and answers. So from the Compass side, we have several companies. We have CompassData, which is part of this project that we've worked on in this program that we've worked on with Cyclomedia. We have CompassCom, which is a vehicle tracking solution software, MRM, AVL. And then we have CompassDrone, which sells hardware, does training, sells software, does consulting on the drone side. So when the drone side does come into this solution, the CompassDrone side of our company is definitely a big part of that. And then specifically a little bit more on CompassData, we're really a multi-platform accuracy company. Been around for 25 years, work with satellite providers, have an archive of ground control that's 60,000 points around the globe. We have aerial imagery solutions, drone, backpack, as we'll talk about today, traditional survey, and utility from subsurface to transmission distribution stuff that we'll be discussing today. So from space to subsurface, these are our core solutions right here.
Just to give everyone a little bit of background on Cyclomedia, our company began over 35 years ago in the Netherlands. We have offices in the Netherlands, in Germany, and in the US. And we've been collecting data in the US for about 20 years now. And as I mentioned, we focus on the street level capture, very high resolution, 360-degree panoramic imagery. And then in more recent years, we have integrated our 3D LiDAR as well. And then on top of that, we also do machine learning, AI, asset extraction analytics that transform data into insights and allow you to make data-driven decisions. And this is just an image of our Cyclomedia technology platform. The basis of our platform, the orange here, is that cyclorama imagery, that really high resolution imagery, and our LiDAR data. The second, the blue, being our Insights 360 data analytics platform. And then the top is our Street Smart software. And our Street Smart software is our customer-facing software. This comes standard with any sort of acquisition from Cyclomedia, multiple logins, as many as you need. It offers a realistic 3D walkthrough of the environment and allows you to interact with the imagery and also do things like take measurements right off of the imagery as well. Just to give a little more background on the platform, what you're looking at here in the bottom left is the Cyclomedia recording system. This is a typical vehicle-based recording system that you'd see. On top, we have a patented camera system, which consists of 5 different cameras, one that faces forward, backwards, right, left, and directly up. And then we also have our LiDAR scanner, GPS antenna, IMU, and then inside the vehicle, we have an operator tablet that our drivers use to visualize the route and do any in-field QA/QC as they're driving.
And from the platforms that CompassData is bringing to the solution, it's the backpack right here. This is like a Pegasus. We've used several different kinds. And then we have the Regal Minivox LiDAR, really high quality LiDAR on our drone in our UAS system, and also has a camera with it as well for nadir orthophotos. So what kind of ties all this together is it's LiDAR, GNSS, IMUs, optical cameras, and they might vary a little bit from platform to platform, meaning whoever manufactured the software that we use, at least on our side. But it's really the understanding that we have as a company and as Cyclomedia has on how to do the right things out in the field and QC and process to bring it all into one place so that it's a cohesive data set that it brings value to the circuit customers that are getting the end data out of it. So a little more on the platforms here. So the nature of this is we're on the ground, right? So we're moving slow for the most part. And we're within close proximity to what we're mapping. And when you are close and you're moving slow, you get really high density, right? You get a lot of points and you get a lot of detail, and that just translates into more features that can be extracted from it, more intelligence that can be gained, and different departments within a company that needs this data where they can use it. So if we're working on a program for veg encroachment, the key thing that Cyclomedia and CompassData do is that we get it to them, we disseminate the data, but we also expose it so that other folks within the organization can use it to gain value from. So this chart over here on the right is just a quick view of, with the backpack, we're getting tens of thousands of points per square meter, with the vehicle thousands, and with the drone it's tens to hundreds of points per square meter, depending on how we fly. And then the amount of things that we can extract from it just at a quick glance. So as I showed you guys on the agenda slide, we're going over this now. This is the plan, the capture, the process, the publish, the extract, and the delivery. And key to having successful scheduling of this is the planning side and what we've done together there, which we'll go over, and then being very efficient with how we capture, right, with the vehicle, the backpack, and the drone, and then making sure the data is good as it comes in, following all of our processes and doing quality checks and then processing it and publishing it, and then really getting into the analytics and pulling out the answer, the why, what do we do with this data that's so valuable, that Jill will go over. And as I mentioned, the delivery, right? How did this get disseminated? There's been programs that I've been part of where there wasn't really good dissemination of the data, and it doesn't always get used. So Cyclomedia really has that down well, and we'll go over that. So on the planning side, typically we'll get a circuit or we'll get multiple circuits, and what we do first is we just look at it and say, okay, what can be driven by the vehicle, because that's the fastest way, the most efficient. And from there we say what can't be driven by the vehicle, and then we look at that and say, okay, we need to figure out what the level of difficulty is for a backpack or a drone system to go do this, and then we categorize it and kind of plan out to say this is how we're going to do the vehicle, backpack, and drone. So more detail on that is basically when we get a circuit, we'll take it, Cyclomedia will look at it and buffer it compared to a roads file and say, okay, all these roads that we can drive are within this X distance of the circuit, and therefore 80% of the circuit is something we can capture by driving. And then from there, it's here's the 20%, and that gets handed over to CompassData, and we look at it. We created this really nice set of data that takes into account how many parcels are within a region, how long is a segment length, the nearness to each other, distance from a road. We've got DTMs, DSMs that we pull in there when we can get them available from free sources, and pull that all together and kind of do a remoteness and a level of difficulty scoring, and it kicks out and basically says, here's this is going to be easy, moderate, difficult, and we can really get an idea of how long it's going to take by looking at a circuit and saying, of the off-road stuff, the percentages of easy compared to difficult are this, and based on our experience on other circuits that we've done and adjusting of the model, we feel really good, and we've shown that we're within a day or two on either end of what we're estimating in terms of the length of time it's going to take. So from that, we take that schedule and we look at the crews, and one thing we also do is we say, okay, if here's how long it's going to take with one crew on the ground with a backpack, or two crews on the ground with a backpack, but we need to get our cycle time down. We just figure out how to get more people on the job to do the backpack and UAS and drone stuff, so that we can hit that cycle time, which is a big advantage of working with us, with going out with the vehicle, doing the backpack, doing the drone, really compressing it and getting the data turned around really quickly to the customer. So from all that, you got all the planning done, and then we deploy, capture, and track. And Jill's going to go over the Cyclomedia piece of that now.
Yep, so on the Cyclomedia side, in the US, we have a fleet of almost 50 vehicles that could be anywhere in the US at any given time, which means that it is very scalable and very easy for us to deploy vehicles anywhere in the US. Each one of our vehicles can capture up to 50 miles a day, so we can cover a very large area very quickly and efficiently. And we also do regular in-field QC checks for any errors associated with the camera or our GPS connection as we're driving along.
And so on the CompassData side, the backpack crews per circuit, there's a safety component that we have to follow, so we have to have 2 people per backpack. But what we've found is that to have 2 backpacks and 5 people in 3 vehicles, it's the most efficient way to go out to the field and get this done, because when you're walking these very remote areas that aren't accessible by the road and captured by the Cyclomedia folks, you can walk a 5-mile stretch and end up in the middle of nowhere. So how do we get more efficient? And this is what we found by working on these projects with that crew per circuit. On the drone side, it's a drone and a 2-man team, a pilot and a visual observer. Typically, they're both pilots, but that's the way we approach that. And we can get up to 8 linear miles a day, typically, is what we can do there. So, and I forgot to mention, with that 2 backpack 5-man crew, we're typically getting 16 or up to 16 miles per day with that configuration of folks out in the field. And then on the survey side, this is the checkpoints that we survey so that we can do an overall accuracy check of the Cyclomedia data and everything once it's get merged and processed together for absolute accuracy. And that's typically, we're doing about 30 points per circuit, and that depends on how big the circuit is, but that's a single 1-man crew out there after the project's done or while the project's going on to get that done. So the next step is the processing and the publishing and everything, but there's still a project management and basically percent complete kind of thing that we needed to do to make sure that we are tracking these projects and being transparent with our customer on how we're doing with schedules and are we going to get this done in time. And so we learned a lot from Cyclomedia on their dashboards, and they've got amazing dashboards for their drive side. And we kind of adopted the same approach by putting an app in the field with our folks out there doing backpack or drone, where they can click on a segment and say this is complete, or if they can't get into a segment for some reason, they can say it's a hazard, there's a dog barking, there's a no trespassing, there's an aggressive landowner or something like that, and that gets tracked as they're mapping, and then they can take pictures, and that gets uploaded to a dashboard either live if they have cell phone coverage or when they get back to cell phone coverage. So that all comes in, we look at that data, and then we're able to see how we're trending compared to the schedule that we set up. So in addition to that, we have the check, field check on the QC for the folks that are collecting the data. So they finish a line, they finish a flight, and then they check through to make sure all the data's there, and then they do nightly uploads via the cloud so that the office can check it in the next day and start working on it and identify any issues if there are any and report back before they move too far to the next area. So from there, it's the processing and verification steps. So this is really getting base stations locally. We have not had the need to set up our own local base station based on the networks where we've been working and the accuracy requirements. But then taking that and then doing an adjustment with all those base stations and understanding the datum and epic requirements for the customer. This is what CompassData is really good at, and it's the foundation really for every processing you do for GNSS and IMU to get the calibrated LiDAR and imagery over to Cyclomedia. So, and then there's the spherical image processing and tagging those triggered locations along with the walk files. And then there's a positional accuracy review, and it's basically reporting on what it says the accuracy is, and Cyclomedia's got a great amount of reporting on their side as well. And then the checkpoint is used for absolute accuracy reporting with the CompassATA software to say, okay, we brought all the data in and we're checking it and it meets the requirement, it exceeds the requirement from an absolute standpoint. And then final quality checks are gone through, and then it's published for analytics. So, and Jill's going to go over the cool stuff here with all their technology on the analytics.
Yep, thanks, Hayden. So now that we've gone through all the planning, capturing, publishing, the next step then is to run analytics on all of the captured data, both the vehicle-based Cyclomedia data and the backpack-based Compass data, using an immersive digital twin. So Cyclomedia has developed an in-house data analytics software, which we call Insights 360, which applies machine learning techniques to our imagery and our LiDAR data, producing really unmatched accuracy and completeness. And then in addition to our machine learning and AI tools, we also have a team of trained extraction analysts in our Madison, Wisconsin office who work with the data as well. And what you're looking at behind the text on this slide is a screenshot from our Insights 360 software, which I will be demoing in a little bit. This particular screenshot is from Cyclomedia's vehicle-based LiDAR with some extracted features overlaid. And you'll see a very similar type image on this slide. This image is also in our Insights 360 data analytics software, but this is CompassData's backpack data. And as you can see, they collect very, very dense, accurate LiDAR data as well. So both of us collect the imagery and the LiDAR data. And the great thing about our Insights 360 software is we can ingest multiple types of LiDAR. So we ingest both the vehicle LiDAR and the backpack LiDAR. And then we're able to run the same analytics on both sets of LiDAR data so that the output is really one continuous and one cohesive data set of the entire distribution system. And just to give you a little more information on the types of data analytics Cyclomedia can do, for this we are focusing mainly on the vegetation management solution, since that is the project that Cyclomedia and CompassData have worked on together. But in addition, we do have multiple different features we can extract and multiple projects we've worked on. So just to run through these quick, our vegetation management solution is where we would collect conductor spans, locate utility poles, trees, other vegetation, give heights and dimensions of the vegetation. And then we'll also run our encroachment analytics, which will analyze the LiDAR point cloud and generate hazard points if they are identifying any vegetation within close proximity to those conductor lines. Another use case that we see often is just a general overhead infrastructure inventory where we will inventory poles, any structures on the ground or on poles, spans, any equipment attached to the poles, and we can also give very accurate locations, dimensions, and then certain measurements between different features as well. The next is make ready and pole loading analysis, and these are two use cases that we've seen a lot of lately. These are both a more comprehensive inventory of all overhead infrastructure. We're picking up anchors, we're identifying cross arms, number of cross arms, dimensions, including cables, conductors, and then all points of attachment on the pole, as well as heights and any other attributes associated with those attachments. And then the last one I'll mention here, just due to shared infrastructure, we have done a lot of work with fiber to the home or fiber to the business and 5G planning and engineering, where that will pick up some overhead infrastructure, but a lot of that is the ground feature. So identifying the location and presence of cabinets, pedestals, manholes, buildings, sites, and other trees, for example, just things that you would need to know where the accurate location of these features are. Now, I will mention that this is not an exhaustive list of features that Cyclomedia can and has collected. We have a whole list of features that we collect, and we are always looking to collect new features. We like to say that if we can see it, we can extract it. So we do often do custom projects with customers depending on your needs. And with that, I will jump right into a demonstration. Hayden, do you just want to confirm that you can see my screen?
Yeah, I got it. Looks good.
Okay, perfect. So I mentioned our data analytics software, our Insights 360, as we call it, and that's what you're looking at here. So I'll run through kind of a high level of what you're looking at and then talk about some of our capabilities and past project experience. As I mentioned, we do ingest both the panoramic imagery into the software as well as the LiDAR. And our standard imagery is 100 megapixel. I'll zoom in here. That really allows you to see fine detail at a great distance, to pick up things such as pole tags or condition of pole features. We do also offer a 250 megapixel camera as well if you're looking for something much more fine grained than that. I will switch over to our LiDAR point cloud. As you can see, we do generate a very, very dense LiDAR point cloud, and I will say that if you think ours is dense, the point cloud from CompassData, backpack data, is even more dense and accurate. Our LiDAR point cloud has an average accuracy of 2 centimeters. So we do extract all of our features off of our LiDAR point cloud to retain that very high level of accuracy. And we have the images that we can also use as visual verification. I will turn on visibility of our features. So we extract both point and line features, and we can also do volume box. For example, if you were looking for the volume of tree canopy, we can do that as well. All of our features are collected using that combination of machine learning tools, AI, and also that team of trained extraction analysts in our Madison, Wisconsin office. So we do have a whole list of features that we have fully automated. We have some features that are semi-automated, and every day we're working to automate more and more features just to retain that high efficiency and accuracy. Every one of our features has unique attribution associated with it. So as you can see on the right-hand side of my screen here, for example, this is a poll feature. They each will have a unique ID. We'll give the date and time of creation, so you have a timestamp. They inherently always have our latitude, longitude, altitude information associated with them. And we can also add any custom attribution. So if you're looking for anything outside of the standard, we can work with you to add that in as well. For example, if we look down at the bottom right-hand side of my screen here, we have identified the height of this utility pole, and this customer was interested in distinguishing whether or not it was a single or double pole, so we can add any sort of drop downs to that as well. And we can also merge any existing customer data with our extracted data to snap it to a correct location. For example, if you have unique identifiers or pole tags you would like us to use with your data, that is something we have done as well. To talk a little bit more about our vegetation tools, which was the premise of the project we worked on with Compass, what you're looking at, all these red and green points and lines, are identifying areas where vegetation was within a certain distance of these conductor lines. So what we first do is we go through and we trace out the conductors, which are the blue lines indicated here. And then we'll run those automated tools to determine if vegetation is within those buffers that we have created. For the project that we did with CompassData, the customer was interested in 3 different types of hazard radiuses. The first and the most critical was any vegetation that was within 0 to 4 feet of the conductor. We also identified vegetation that was in a 4 to 12 foot radius around the conductor, and that is what all of these red points and lines are identifying. And then we also identified overhanging vegetation that would risk falling down on top of the conductors, and that is what the green over here is identifying. Rotate this a little bit to give you an idea. Now, each of these hazard encroachment points, as we call them, has its own unique attribution, just like all other features we extract. But the really key attribution here is the near distance field. So we will give you the exact distance from the conductor line to that vegetation that it was identifying as a hazard. That makes it very easy for you to very quickly see where you need to go and remediate any vegetation, distinguish what is the most critical for remediation, and use that information in the field if necessary. So after all of the data is extracted, we have a full quality assurance team who will run through the data, make sure that everything looks good, make sure it meets our quality standards, and then we will extract all of the feature layers right out of our software as shapefiles. Our most standard delivery format for this extracted data is a shapefile or a file geodatabase. We can do CSVs as well. And then one interesting thing for this particular project, in addition to delivering the file geodatabase, we also published all of the extracted features into an ArcGIS Online web application, which had Cyclomedia's imagery fully integrated into it, and where the customer could then very quickly and easily view and share the data. And that could be accessible from in the office or from in the field. And I will also say Cyclomedia has a few existing out-of-the-box integrations already built for Esri products. We are an Esri Gold partner, so we can very easily integrate with ArcMap, ArcPro, ArcGIS Online. We have an integration with GE Small World, as well as some integrations for pole loading analysis software such as OCalc, AutoCAD, and we do have an open API for any custom further development you may be interested in. I will give it back over to you, Hayden. And then one last slide for me just to wrap up my section here. To give you an idea of some of the experience and best practices Cyclomedia has, I just briefly go over this. For utilities, we have done multiple large-scale electric distribution and vegetation management projects, and also some survey, pole engineering, and attachment audits. And then in the communication space, fiber, 5G network planning projects, and compliance verification risk assessment. But what I think is more interesting on this slide is the right-hand side that have some statistics and some feedback we've gotten from past customers on past projects. We have heard that our automated inventory can offer 60% cost savings over traditional manual field efforts. And we can also reduce boots on the ground manual fielding by 80% or more. We have one large one large engineering firm that we work with who will not even do a project without Cyclomedia data, because we have made such a difference and impact on their cost savings, their timeline, and the accuracy of the data we provide them.
Great, Jill. Thanks for the demo. That was great. Really good to see. Appreciate that. So what I'm going to do right now is just kind of review everything and then wrap it up, and then we'll get some Q&A. So as we look at the projects that Cyclomedia and CompassData have worked on to do the complete circuit mapping, what stands out to me in being part of them is the high accuracy, high density with detail, and being creative and unique approach to taking something that was a problem, like we can't get that data because it's so remote, and then applying the right platform to it and getting a complete circuit over to a customer. The planning that we go through on the front end is really key to making sure that we hit our cycle times, which is unique in terms of from okay, here's the order to go get it, to getting the data processed, to getting it through the analytics, and then getting it back to the customer. That planning piece that we're doing is data driven, and it's come a long way since we built it in the beginning, and really unique. So, and then the rapid and efficient capture methods that we're using. If Cyclomedia gets out, they can get 70-80% of the roads, and we are out there right after them with our crews. It happens really quick, and that can be stressful on my part, but definitely it's been fun, and it's makes our customers happy. The manual machine learning and feature population, the analytics that Cyclomedia does is key, and the use for the multi-departmental applications, so that web app, the Esri web app that gets published to the customers, can then get shared to different departments, as Jill touched on already. So this is kind of a couple views of the plan, and then the cycle, and just kind of what we're doing together. And with that, I'll say thanks everyone for listening, and give it back to Joe, and we'll take some questions.
Thanks, Hayden and Jill. Nice talk. Covered a lot of material there. We're running a little bit over, but that's okay. We'll find a way to deal with that. Have a question from Troy. He says he's experimented with 2 backpack models, meaning LiDAR backpack models for power line data capture. But both models can't seem to deliver high accuracy that's required, about plus or minus 2 centimeters, to get detailed assessment of on-pole facilities, attachment points, etc. Terrestrial tripod mount can do it, but it's so much slower. So he wants to know how you are able to do it with backpack mounted systems.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a really good question. You know, there's the absolute accuracy requirement, and then there's the density. So if Troy, if you need to get to 2 centimeters absolute accuracy, you know, that wasn't what our programs were about. We didn't have that accuracy requirement. We were getting very accurate data, and then the density and the features that you could pull from it, you know, it was significant. So I think the accuracy reports that we have this, you know, in that 5 to 10 centimeter at worst for the backpack data, and that's absolute accuracy. And we did have to do some learning and working with Cyclomedia in the beginning to make sure that the capture we were doing, you know, we refined some of our collection methodologies, and that's how we got to where we needed to be to meet the requirements for our end customer. So I hope that answers the question, Troy, and if not, we can talk offline, or you can ask another one.
I had a chance to do a little back and forth with him, and I don't think he's looking at absolute, he's actually looking at relative, because he says the data sets were so fuzzy that he couldn't pick off things like attachment points. So my guess.
Sorry, I think Troy, we could talk, and I could maybe tell you that what we've seen there, maybe help you out. So.
Okay, very good. I'm going to suggest to Troy that if he hasn't downloaded the program guidebook, he should do that, and maybe make a video call appointment with Hayden. So I have another question from Tristan. He said, in regards to compliance with state law, does CompassData or Cyclomedia have either on-staff or contracted surveyors licensed in the individual states that are in responsible charge of the work and certifying the entire deliverable, meaning the LiDAR, the UAS data, the control survey, and the GIS data? I know this thing comes up all the time because of liability issues, so I'm curious to see what you both have as your answers to this.
Yeah, I'll take it first, Joe, if that's all right. For the projects that we've worked on with Cyclomedia, that has been a requirement. And CompassData does have licensed surveyors on staff. We don't have licensed surveyors in every state, but when this is a requirement, we work with a licensed surveyor. In the report that that Cyclomedia puts together is a comprehensive, from here's what we drove, here's the accuracies we got relative off of the drive files, down to the checkpoint data that we have, and then the Compass A and TA software that you run through, and you say this is the absolute accuracy. So it's a 40, 50 page report, and part of that is a licensed surveyor in the states that we've worked with Cyclomedia on these projects, a stamp sign. Yes, we have that for what we've worked on. So great question.
Thank you. So I have a question that probably applies to both of you, but Jill, you mentioned AI powered data, so machine learning and so forth. So I have a similar question to the one I asked Anik and Indra. how do you validate this? In other words, how do you know, because you don't have fixed reference points for control everywhere. So, but I can imagine several different ways in the software you can do this internal validation right there inside the point cloud. But I'm just curious what your statements would be, because I think managers, if they've never seen this, think this is pie in the sky. How on earth could you possibly drive down a road at whatever your speed is, let's say 30 miles per hour, or whatever, and get all this information where it used to be painfully slow and painfully expensive in the past?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So all of our analytics are done after the capture. So after we capture the data, we bring it back, we process it, and then we ingest it into our data analytics software. And at that point, that is when we'll run the AI tools on it. We have very, very extensive machine learning processes. The great thing is that Cyclomedia has so much data collected that we are able to have a lot of training data for our algorithms, ranging all over the US, different geospatial areas. And we do also have, as I mentioned, a team of trained extraction analysts. So all of the data that is run through our automated systems does have human eyes on it before it goes out to our customers, just to validate that the tools are working correctly and they are identifying all the features correctly.
So there's a related question with that, which is, we have all these no insult, but computer nerds working on this stuff, right? And that they are not intimately involved with creation or maintenance of power lines. So do you have, I'm going to call them content experts, before you actually hand the data over to your client, that makes sure that this actually makes sense? Yeah, this is how somebody would build this power line, and it's not an anchor in the sky, for example, or something like that.
Yeah, another great question. So Cyclomedia has a full training team as well. So before a project, when we figure out the scope of work, we will have our training specialists train up all of our extraction analysts on all the different features and give some background on what they are, what they do, why they're important, how they're connected. And so all of our extraction analysts have this training, and then again, before the data is delivered, we have our full quality assurance team run through, who has also been trained up very strictly on this data, so that they will know what they're looking for, what they're looking at, and the scope of the project.
Very good. Anything to add to that, Hayden?
No, that is Jill's expertise, and I know we're running low on time, so I think she covered it well for me.
No problem. Well, thank you for a really interesting presentation. I really like the way that CompassData kind of breaks down the different ways that data can be acquired and then invests in the proper resources in the proper areas. As a surveyor, I also like the fact that you point out the importance of ground control. Now, I understand that. I'm not sure everybody in our audience understands that, because they're not all surveyors, but I'm just going to put in my own shameless plug for having enough of an understanding of surveying and datums and projections, so that this stuff all fits together. I always go back to Exxon Valdez, and many of us who are attending probably weren't born then. But I always think about that, because people said, well, GPS would have solved the problem and the Exxon Valdez would never have broken apart. But that first meant that all the charts and GPS, or put it this way, the projections in GPS had to be working in the same systems to be able to avoid reefs and shoals and whatnot. So it's a similar kind of problem that we have here, that it's real great to create a digital twin that exists out in La La Land, but does it actually, can it actually be placed on the surface of the earth and actually match? And so I don't want to claim that you're doing all that, but that's my thing, to look for that And I am not going to say that GIS stands for Get It Surveyed, but because that's a really bad cliche, because GIS is such an important tool, and as far as I'm concerned, it's really part of the surveying spectrum.